Welcome back to First Take exclusively on YouTube. We got Mad Dog here, obviously Stephen A. Let's dive right in. Yesterday, Stephen A gave his top 5 most influential players in the NBA. Having it go. Number 1, Michael Jordan. Number 2, Magic Johnson. Number 3, LeBron James. 4, Steph Curry. And 5, Bill Russell, with honorable mention going to Allen Iverson. Do you have any issue with Stephen A's list?
I got a couple of issues with. I make Bird the honorable mention myself. I understand the Iverson thing, but the key word to your whole thing is influential.
Yep.
We all know that LeBron and Jordan are great, but I don't know how influential as far as their playing style is concerned, and that's what I'm referring to a large degree with influential. I agree with Stevie's list to a certain degree. I'm going to take, obviously, Russell 5. His great defense, blocking shots, setting up his teammates, fast break, making sure he blocks a shot, the ball doesn't go out of bounds, so he retains possession. I think that, plus he won 11 times in 13 years. He changed the way the game was operated from a defensive perspective, so I'm with Stephen A on that. He is number 5. I'm also with Stephen A on Curry. You have to put him in the top 5 because he's changed the way the offense is run because of all his three-point shooting. And the fact that his range is... Now, you can make an argument this is a negative because too many kids are doing the same thing he can do, and they don't make as many shots, so the game becomes a little haphazard. But he is so good from an offensive perspective. His shooting is tremendous. He's fun to watch. That's part of it, too. He's no question about it. He is also he is in this mix. So you're going to put Curry in there. I'll put him at 4. I didn't really do a list, but I'll put him at 4.
Okay.
3, I'm going to put Magic because Magic, to me, is the first player that I saw in my life in the early 80s that could dominate a game without scoring. We've done a lot of this, Stephen A, on the regular shows.
Yep.
He can dominate a ball game without putting the ball in the basket. You can have a game with Magic playing. He can take 3 shots. He'd have 15 rebounds, 13 assists, control the whole game, and he'd win by 30, and he'd take 3 shots at the point guard position. Not many guys can do that, and I think his size and all his uniqueness made people think of the point guard, point forward a little differently, so I'm going to put Magic number 3. I'm going to put Wilt number 2 because Wilt was the first unbelievable big man. He changed the television contract in the 60s. I wonder if Stevie has seen that Wilt Goliath documentary
Not yet, but I will.
Very good. And, of course, he was the first $100,000 a year player. Russell got mad that he got paid more, so Russell wanted a dollar more than he did. And, obviously, Chamberlain is Chamberlain, the way he scored, his athletic ability, the track and field star to boot. The Saturday afternoon TV games or the Sunday afternoon TV games against the Celtics with Russell, he is number 2. And I'm going to surprise you with number 1. I'm going to take Elgin Baylor because Elgin Baylor is the first forward who played above the rim. He dunked one-handed, scored 61 in a playoff game against Russell. Later, it was Julius. Later, it was the other forwards. Baylor was the first. He just died a year or 2 ago. Yeah. Baylor was the first. Dynamic, above the rim, the one-handed shot, up and down the court. I mean, he played the game. Instead of playing below the rim, he was the first forward to play above the rim. And after him, they all came, led by Julius next in the ABA. So I'll put Baylor number 1.
I get where you're coming from. I don't understand how you can leave both Michael Jordan and LeBron James off your list. I think that LeBron James is easily a top 3, arguably a top 2 player in the history of basketball, in the eyes of some folks who simply don't really understand the history of the game. They would have him number 1, but I don't have him number 1. 2 or 3 is LeBron James. But what LeBron James has done to transcend the sport off the court, that also matters. That's why I really had Bill Russell on that list. It wasn't just because of the 11 titles in 13 years. It was the conditions under which he accomplished those things. One of the reasons, and you'll vibe with me on this, Doggy, one of the reasons we don't call Muhammad Ali the greatest because Muhammad Ali was some undefeated champion like Floyd Money Mayweather or somebody. We call him that because we know what adverse circumstances he went through, because he refused to enter the armed services, to go to Vietnam and obviously defied the government and was stripped of his boxing license and his title and his ability to earn a living for years, and then ultimately he reclaimed the championship at Kinshasa, Zaire by knocking out George Foreman. We saw those adverse circumstances. Well, Bill Russell is the same principle. Bill Russell was doing what he did in during, post-civil rights era as well. Plus, he was a player coach. And then you look at it from that perspective. So I look at him with that. Steph Curry is self-explanatory. When we think about Magic Johnson, which is why I don't really have a problem with your Bird analogy in terms of putting him as an honorable mention, because we know they saved the NBA. The NBA was viewed as a drug-infested league.
In the 70s.
Completely out of control. It was on tape delay, wasn't even on national television. All of this stuff was going on. And then Magic and Bird came along, and the marketing of those two individuals and the rivalry they had with one another literally saved the NBA and ultimately elevated it. But Michael Jordan took it to another level. And Michael Jordan, one could easily argue, is directly responsible for the globalization of the sport. It was because of Michael Jordan and his immense popularity and where he took the sport when the mantle was essentially passed to him by Bird and Magic. Then you have the Dream Team in the Olympics in Barcelona, which was the coming out party. But they all knew you couldn't do that without Michael Jordan. You go to Barcelona without Michael Jordan, you might as well not go. That's how huge he was compared to everybody else. And so his participation in the Olympics and the NBA's willingness to go global in that regard at that particular moment in time, it was something they would not have been able to do without him. So that's where he comes in. And then, of course, who's the person that was able to carry the mantle? I'm talking about in terms of globalization. We know that Kobe was incredibly popular. We get all of that. He was a champion. But he was the number 2 to Shaquille O'Neal for those first 3 titles before winning 2 additional years later with Pau Gasol. LeBron James has been the face of the league for over a decade. He's an international, global, iconic face. Plus, he's doing what he's done on the court. Plus, he's entering his 21st season. Plus, he's the all-time leading scorer in the sport. Plus, he's a 4-time champion, and he's a 4-time league MVP. You take all of those things into consideration and considering where the NBA is now with stars that are not from America, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, etc. Well, guess what? LeBron James, Michael Jordan took it to a place, and LeBron James elevated it even more. And because of that, the NBA has successfully gone about the business of globalizing its brand. Magic and Bird saved it, but MJ and LeBron took it to another level, and that is why I would have them on the list.
Put Stern up there, too. He had a lot to do with that.
Sure. Well, they all did. We were just talking top 5.
The players. You know what Steve and I are doing here? We're using the different definition of influence.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Steve is using influence
Right.
around the sport,
Right.
and I'm doing
the culture.
influence in the sport.
Yes.
We got a couple that equal Russell, but for the most part, he's looking at it a little different angle than I'm looking at it. So I can't argue with his list.
Yeah.
And I don't know he's in my list.
Right.
Yeah.
But with Chamberlain, he's right about Chamberlain because rules had to be changed because of Chamberlain, because he was so dominant. Here's the one thing that I've always held against Wilt Chamberlain. I'm going to say this right on camera to you because obviously the historian you are, you need to hear this. Ultimately, your level of success is measured by what you do against your arch nemesis. And what I say to everybody who gets on me for not giving the great, phenomenal, incomparable Wilt Chamberlain his just due is I said, I can't help but go back to your nemesis was Bill Russo.
And you couldn't beat him.
He had 11 titles.
Yeah.
You had 2.
Exactly right.
And because of that is why, as much of a first-tier dude as he is because of his dominance, he's second-tier when it comes to overall resume and accomplishments because you pale in comparison to your nemesis. Just like Kobe Bryant, as much as I love him, God bless him, miss him all the time, he's number 2 to MJ. They played the same position, played similar styles. He's number 2 to MJ, and that's where you put LeBron above him.
Perfect example of Wilt. The year after they won the championship, 66-67, he had a 3-1 lead against Russell and the Celtics. The following year, 67-68, they blew Game 7 at home. He would not take a shot in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Why? He didn't want to foul out, and he had never fouled out of an NBA game, and he had 5 fouls, so he didn't want to foul out.
Yeah.
Wilt, it's Game 7.
Yes.
Shoot the ball.
Shoot the ball.
There's an example.
Exactly.
2 very solid lists. We'll end it there. Thanks for watching. And be sure to watch First Take Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on ESPN. And be sure to check out more exclusive First Take debates on YouTube.